this one is just too easy.
Welcome back to Northern Perspective, everyone. I'm Cypher.
And I'm Fox.
First, we would like to give you a quick recap on what happened in the public inquiry today. I'm glad we didn't commit to live streaming today, because today was not one for everybody to watch. It started at around 10 o'clock. Justice Hogue essentially went through her opening statement, her approach to the inquiry. One interesting thing that she said is that she hadn't reviewed any of the evidence yet because she wanted to go into this with a untainted view of it, which is, I think, a good thing. And then they proceeded to introduce all of the parties, which basically everybody was lawyers in that room. And I was surprised. There were many different groups, including the Russian-Canadian Democracy Alliance, or Democratic Alliance, excuse me. And that's because that the scope of the inquiry also includes Russian interference. But, you know, they just went through about a half an hour of everyone saying, yeah, this is who I am, and this is who we are, and this is what we do. The interesting thing is the NDP didn't obviously have their stuff together because there was nobody further to be introduced representing the NDP. They were absent.
Wasn't Jenny Kwan supposed to be there?
So Jenny Kwan's lawyers were, but as the party, so for example, Michael Chong had his two lawyers there. The Conservative Party had their two lawyers there, which were separate from Michael Chong's lawyers. But the NDP party had nobody there. So, Jagmeet, come on, buddy. Let's go. So I found that kind of humorous. But then they broke for lunch. So, you know, they spent the whole morning talking about that. And, you know, of course, they had to break for lunch at that point. Then they came back, and really what the afternoon was, and it only lasted a couple of hours, was presentations on essentially the procedure, the schedule, and there is a huge focus on how classified documents are going to be handled in the public inquiry. And they went through definitions of protected, secret, top secret, that sort of thing. So there was no content of really any substance that happened today, which is why we're not really going to show you much. But Justice Hogue concluded the inquiry hearing today by essentially saying that the real work starts tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. So we do have the link included in the description of this video if you do want to watch it. We had some issues watching it on Chrome. Now that could have been because of an ad blocker, but didn't have any issues on native Firefox. So just keep that in mind. But that's it. So as we say, the real work starts tomorrow.
Now, after a month and a half, we are back to question period, and boy, did it not disappoint us.
Let's take a look.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Minister back from his $80,000 vacation, which he got for free. He said, like most Canadians, friends welcomed him for that vacation. He took two, not one, but two private jets paid for by the taxpayer, burning 100 tons of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. He wants to tax the heat and the food of Canadians. Did he pay the full carbon tax on each of the 100 tons of emissions that he put into the atmosphere as part of his $80,000 vacation?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Well, that was not unexpected at all. So, but it's expected that Pierre is going to open with the $80,000 to $89,000 vacation that Trudeau took. But I thought it was very clever to add in the cost of the jet fuel and the fact that all you hear from this Liberal government is environment, and carbon tax, and we got to tax your heating. well, you burned 100 tons of fuel going back and forth to Jamaica. Are you going to pay any tax on that? Because you didn't pay for your stay. You didn't pay for anything. It was essentially an all-inclusive stay that costs more than the median Canadian salary. So what's up, Trudeau? Are you actually going to do anything? No, of course you're not going to do anything. But it was a good opening salvo. I liked it.
So some of you may be wondering what the little green patches that everybody are wearing on their lapels. So those are to honor the Day of Action Against Islamophobia.
So if you recall, some years ago, there was a horrific attack at a mosque in Quebec, and a whole bunch of Muslim people were killed, unfortunately, as they prayed. And the green patch is to symbolize the carpet color of the mosque where they did last pray. So, whatever is going on in the world, I think we all can agree, doesn't matter what race, religion, or creed you are. Something like that is horrific, and everyone of all walks and stripes needs to be speaking against that.
The Conservative leader has simply no plan to address climate change in this country, no plan to increase the resilience of our communities in the fight against climate change. Warming climate causes droughts. Droughts damage crops. Damaged crops increase the cost of groceries. And yet, the Conservative Party cannot even agree on whether or not climate change is real. Mr. Speaker, we will achieve our emissions reductions, all the while sending Canadians checks to help with the cost of rising prices. There are real solutions.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, he says that greenhouse gas emissions are driving up grocery prices. He put 100 tons of those emissions in the atmosphere for his personal vacation. This is high tax, high flying, high carbon hypocrisy. Yep. Meanwhile, Canadians in Edmonton were facing minus 50-degree temperatures on which they were paying carbon taxes just to heat their homes and stay alive. Given that he gives himself a free vacation at other people's expense, will he at least allow Canadians to heat their homes without his tax?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
So you have Trudeau basically saying, it's funny how the narrative changes because they used to say, well, the Conservatives don't even believe that climate change exists. Now he's saying, well, they can't agree whether or not it does exist. Like, okay, sure. Everyone believes that the climate is changing. The debate is whether or not people are causing it. And again, it doesn't matter if you believe people are causing it or if you believe people are not causing it. That's irrelevant, because if you just accept the fact that people are causing it, Canada accounts for 1.6 to 1.8% of all carbon emissions worldwide. So if we literally shut down the entire economy tomorrow, it would make zero difference whatsoever when it comes to the environment, because China and India and the United States are still going to be polluting their asses off because they collectively account for over 50% of the world carbon emissions.
Well, and once again, Trudeau is wrong. The Conservatives do have an environmental plan, and you can read it for yourself right in their policy declaration, which is available on their website. And I'll make sure that I put it in the description below. This starts on page 19. And there's lots of points here about different environmental areas. But I'm just going to read this real quick. It says, in order to have a strong economy and maintain good health, Canada must have strong, coordinated, and achievable environmental policies. The Conservative Party believes that responsible exploration, development, conservation, and renewal of our environment are vital to our continued well-being as a nation and as individuals.
So there you go. And Pierre's rebuttal, again, right back to his question. He essentially answered his own question, because there's no way in heck that Trudeau is going to answer it. So, like the hypocrisy is that you have people, and he wasn't exaggerating. For those that don't live in Edmonton, it was minus 50 out there, and it gets to minus 50. You know, to give you some context, that's close to the average surface temperature on Mars, minus 63 degrees Celsius. So Edmonton was almost there. So imagine yourself living on Mars and then being told, oh, well, we have to tax your home heating because of carbon emissions. When you think of it that way, it just sounds stupid, because it is.
The Conservative leader likes to talk about the challenges Canadians are facing on the cost of living, but he refuses to take action and support them. He chose to delay the passage of Bill C-59, which is also hurting his own caucus.
That's right.
Does the member for Battleford's Lloydminster now suddenly oppose maternity leave for adoptive parents? Surely the member for Cumberland Colchester won't back down on his advocacy to remove the GST on therapy and counseling services. While the Conservative leader is muzzling his own caucus and putting himself first, we'll keep putting Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Did you notice who's not wearing a green patch on their lapel?
I was going to say something unparliamentary and lacking in decorum, but
Fergus isn't here. He can't stop you.
yeah, he can't mute my mic. But yeah, Mr. Trudeau.
I wonder why.
Hundreds of Muslim Canadian leaders are in Ottawa to mark the 7-year anniversary of the Quebec City mosque shooting. They say they've met with other major party leaders, but they won't meet with Justin Trudeau over what they allege is a lack of action.
Yeah, that makes sense. But look at this picture. This is the picture of a man who's about to, as Leonidas said in 300, unleash hell. And yeah, this just demonstrates the intellectual divide between Pierre and the drama teacher across the aisle.
Let's watch, shall we?
No. This one is just too easy. He walked into it. He had to muzzle a member from Newfoundland who called for an end to his leadership, joining another senator who did the same, because they understand that their constituents are literally starving and unable to heat their homes because the Prime Minister is quadrupling the carbon tax, doubling housing costs, and giving the worst inflation in 40 years. Why won't he listen to, instead of intimidating, his member for Newfoundland and put his leadership up to a review for...
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Don't write checks with your mouth that your body can't cash, Trudeau, because Pierre is going to come to collect every time. Every time. And you're not going to be able to pay up because you don't know how to think on your feet. Like, even that was a talking point that was written down for him. That's the funny thing. And then Pierre was just like, no, I got it. Because, you know, his caucus was getting like, well, wait a second. Like, you can tell that the Conservatives are really in support of Pierre because, you know, they get defensive, right? They get defensive when some of this stuff comes up. And Pierre's like, no, I got it. It's all good.
Well, and then you look at the Liberal side, so many of them are so disengaged. Like, they just don't care anymore. I wouldn't want to support Trudeau. Like, I don't know why they're not crossing the aisle.
Well, but here's the thing. If the Liberals are really that together, like they tried to show on this stupid caucus speech, why are they not, you know, cheering on their leader, right? It's basically because Trudeau is intimidating everybody and nobody wants him there, right? Nobody wants him there.
Well, they know half of the people sitting on that side of the room are going to be losing their jobs if we're right, it'll be this spring. So I imagine they're not too happy.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South. Thank you.
Really bad. The city of Edmonton had to declare a housing and homeless emergency while the Conservatives are laughing about homeless people and a housing crisis. Toronto also had to declare one as well. Again, you'll hear the Conservatives laughing because they have no concern for people who are struggling with housing or homeless. This Liberal government doesn't care either. They have been in power for 9 years and they don't get it. The Prime Minister doesn't get it. The Liberal Minister for Edmonton doesn't get it. And the 24 Liberal MPs in Toronto don't get it. Why does this government wait until things are at a breaking point before acting?
Well, Jagmeet's spitting fire at the Liberals.
Yeah, why are you waiting until things are getting so bad to stop supporting the Liberals?
Well, and he wonders why the Conservatives are laughing. They're not laughing at homeless people. They're laughing at the hypocrisy that is Jagmeet Singh, because he's the one that's allowing this to go on.
Right, he could stop this at any time.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Or he could say, I have a better idea for housing. It's X. You will do it tomorrow, or we will pull our support from you. Because allegedly he has all of this power that he keeps reminding us of. But obviously he doesn't get it, and he doesn't care because he's not doing it.
Use every tool at our disposal to address housing affordability. We meant it. The Minister of Housing recently announced that the post-secondary institutions can now access the apartment construction loan program for low-interest financing to build student housing. This builds on our work to find innovative and bold ideas to accelerate construction, including unlocking over 500,000 new homes through the Housing Accelerator agreements. More examples of the federal government in action.
More examples of the federal government just handing money out like it's candy and expecting people to magically make homes appear. Because your housing accelerator doesn't actually build homes. It just builds more bureaucracy. And that's not just a conservative talking point. It's a fact. They're giving these municipalities like tens of millions of dollars. Why? According to the Liberals, they are giving them this money because the municipalities have changed their laws, quote unquote, to allow them to build homes faster. Okay, so why do they get more money for that? That's the stupid thing here, because it doesn't actually go to build houses. So they're essentially giving them a bonus for being incompetent all of this time. And now that they've allegedly decided to change their laws, you're giving them money? They get enough money. And that's our money, Trudeau. That's not yours. And if it was actually going to be building houses, sure, I think some Canadians can rationalize that. But it's not. And that's the whole problem here. You've been dumping all of this money, billions of dollars, into municipalities, hoping they're just going to magically build more houses. Well, that's not the way it works. So, yeah, I don't buy it. So anyway, so that was question period for the first day back. And interesting day one. You have on one side in the public inquiry, you have all of the lawyers gathering to decide what actually went on in the 2019 and 2021 elections. And then in question period, you have all the politicians screaming at each other, and the opposition still trying to hold Trudeau to account. And I don't know if it's just me, but the Liberals don't look too happy to be back in Parliament, because I think they know they're in for an ass kicking.